Let's get started. I'd like to call the April meeting of the Climate Action Planning Committee to order. Thank you all for being here. And let's dive in with our first vote, namely to approve the March meeting's minutes. I will entertain any comments or corrections or questions about the March minutes. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Alex, I'll move.
A second.
All right,
Or I'll
Matt.
second. I'll move or second.
Okay, I'll make a decision about that. Moves and Ron seconds. With roll call vote. Steve,
Approve.
Kyle,
Yes.
Matt,
Approved.
Kim,
Yes.
Ron.
Yes.
I vote yes. And so they are approved. Marvelous. All right. Now I will share the updates from our energy manager, Kai Mueller, municipal energy manager for Milton and Randolph, for those who haven't joined us before. Kai's not able to join us tonight, but he did email me several bullet points last week of what he's currently working on. So he started by saying that they're finalizing a draft response to the CELT program, CELT fellow program that we discussed at our last meeting, with a proposal for projects that would be supervised by Kai. The fellow would work on improving town communications around energy and climate, help with office hours for energy savings assistance, and assist with the climate action plan, among other projects. So the deadline to submit those proposals is tomorrow, but my understanding is that Kai will be submitting a project proposal joint between Milton and Randolph. Second bullet. We, meaning the town, are completing our application for a Green Communities competitive grant to help pay for a variable refrigerant flow heat pump system at the Council on Aging to electrify heating by fully displacing its natural gas systems and provide cooling. The Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources told us the grant cycle was especially competitive this year. Third bullet, the energy affordability bill passed by the Massachusetts. All right, I just got kicked off of Zoom, but this is fine. Passed by the Massachusetts State House and under review by the Senate. He distributed fact sheets from MAPC and LISC, which I could have sworn gave the definition of that acronym here somewhere. I'll circle back to that. So he shared fact sheets about the bill with us. And he reiterated, as mentioned in our last meeting, that the bill could directly impact funding for energy and climate upgrades that he's working on securing for Milton, including climate leader community funding opportunities and the Advancing Massachusetts Power Grant Program for battery storage. Next bullet, we'll soon get the results of a comprehensive building assessment of Milton High School. And if desired, I can present the main findings at the committee's May meeting. That's great. We're collecting data for the battery storage feasibility study through the AMP program at Town Hall and the Fire HQ. And still waiting for a proposal for new EV charging stations at Council on Aging and Town Hall. I think that's like a vendor proposal. As always, he's available for any questions that we have for him. And that is Kai's update. Any questions or comments?
I had a conversation with Kai, I think 2 days ago, and he was telling me that the assessment at the high school looked at different technologies for electrifying the building and had geothermal at, way above the cost of air source heat pumps. But the analysis did not include rebates and investment tax credits available from the federal government and mass save right now. So I'm kind of amazed that a consultant would put together analysis that doesn't include available funding from, for a program like geothermal.
Was there any opportunity to submit corrections or?
I don't know. I don't I don't know who we're using as a consultant, to do that study.
Okay. Yeah, that's worth following up on. Any other questions or comments?
I had one question about in the first bullet point about grant for application for improving communications surrounding climate issues by the town. Do you know what that encompassed?
I don't have it in front of me. I've seen a draft, but he didn't include that in his update, so I don't want to speak for him. May have changed
Sure.
it since.
I can reach.
Okay.
Yeah, I can reach out and ask him. It would
Yeah, I think,
sorry, go ahead.
no, but I'm not sure what I was trying to say.
I was just going to say, great idea. You might remember, maybe it was last month, Alex, I had emailed on kind of behalf of myself and Ron, thinking about somebody who could take point on funding opportunities across the various working groups and kind of help us prioritize and at least kind of know what's out there and available by work groups. So that would be helpful to know what he's pulling together and kind of what he's found out so far.
Yeah, I think the draft I saw, I liked in that he'd written it at a higher level and with more flexibility he identified at least a half dozen places where a fellow could help. And I think that having the flexibility to have them work on whatever is sort of most auspicious to work on when the time comes is helpful because things are changing so frequently. So having, our original plan to sort of use a fellow as a plan B in case our EEA planning assistance grant funding doesn't come through. I think we agreed last time was too risky of a proposal. So he had that in there as one option, but there were quite a few others. So I think should that be approved, we'll have some flexibility.
Is that what Matt was asking?
Yeah, maybe I misunderstood. It was probably my mistake. So this was
my
not
way of
across the
saying,
working groups that.
I
this
don't think
must be
his
fun.
proposal was to do exactly what you requested,
Yeah. Okay.
but
So
it was written generally enough that you might be able to um, get some help there. But honestly, I think Kai is already doing that for us. But conservation is well outside the scope of his role, so I think you're not going to get as much help there. And candidly, like uh, an energy transition fellow supervised by Kai is not going to be too focused on conservation either, just by the nature of his role. And the E in CELT stands for energy, you know.
okay. Right. So I guess it's a minor point for now, but maybe a major point in the future as we progress these working groups, and Ron will brief everybody on, a proposal for a meeting on the conservation working group upcoming in May. As we get through that and get to, let's call it an updated draft and start moving forward on different projects, any funding would need to be researched and applied for within the working group itself. That is that accurate? Whether they be grants or otherwise, it's all going to be kind of led and managed through the working group. Nobody working kind of across the different working groups to help push some of this stuff forward.
Just us here. So my experience trying to get grant funding is they usually have to find somebody on town staff to take the lead because um, we generally don't have authority to apply for grants on behalf of the town ourselves. So
Makes sense.
you have to find somebody to do it or some other, it depends on the grant program.
Okay.
So that tends to be the work from our perspective.
Can you elaborate a little bit, Alex? I mean, is that something that we can ghostwrite or do a first draft and provide to the town for whoever is the right person to review and submit?
Uh, that's not, I certainly don't have enough experience working on grant applications to say that it always goes a certain way, but the ones that I've been involved with, um, the pattern tends to be either town already knows about it or we bring it to their attention. I spent a while last year making sure that somebody on town staff was paying attention to the EEA planning grant and knowing that it's something that we needed. Most of the work for me was securing permission for the assistant planning director to actually do the application. I came with a draft to a meeting and then Avante significantly rewrote it because he had um, access to the systems and more experience writing these grants than me. So after that point, I sort of handed it off to him, and he finished it. So that's one experience. The other successful grant was the one that funded Kai's position, and in that instance, I brought that grant opportunity to the town administrator and assistant town administrator, and they already knew about it and they were already working on it. I offered to help, and my help wasn't really necessary. It got done. So I mostly sat around worrying about it, but it probably would have happened anyway. And then I think we had an unsuccessful attempt at an MAPC grant last year. So in every instance, though, it's about trying to figure out who to partner with on it.
I think it's like premature to have this discussion because, to the best of my knowledge, the working groups aren't that far along where they even understand or have a budget or know what they want to do. So if we get that far, which would be great, then I think this discussion
Yeah.
becomes more relevant.
So, I mean, I think Matt was coming from, sometimes becoming aware of a grant opportunity is
Oh, yeah.
the kick of momentum that makes you realize, oh, we could do this thing concretely. Let's get the grant and try to do it. But that you have to be aware of the grant opportunity sufficiently in advance to get all that stuff in motion. So honestly, we've missed a few EEA planning grant cycles because I was not familiar enough with how it all worked. And then finally this year, I like knew it was coming 6 months in advance, which is sort of what you,
But you also can be proactive
yeah,
instead of responding to grant opportunities. To put forward proposals to organizations that are funding your type of work.
yep. There's more than one way
Yeah.
to raise money. You probably have more experience with that than I do. Does that answer your question, Matt? Okay,
Yes.
any other comments? Okay, the next item on the agenda is the CELT Municipal Fellowship update, but honestly, I think we just had that. So I'll move on to number 5, stakeholder education and networking meetings, content review. And Ron, that is you.
Well, I mean, what I did was to try to dig in and frame the meeting that the conservation group hopefully will have now sometime in May. And in doing that, it enabled me to think a little more deeply about the conservation group, who it was and what it wants to do. And doing that enabled me to get in touch with and work collaboratively with the 4 organizations that originally sent representatives to the first meeting we had about a year ago, or a little more than a year ago, of the conservation working group. And doing that enabled me to design a framework for the conservation group that basically suggests that the group be a coalition of the main conservation groups that are working on conservation issues in the town, namely the Ponset River Watershed Association, the Shade Tree Advisory Committee, the Friends of the Blue Hills, and the Milton Conservation Commission. So I spoke with representatives from all of those groups, and the framework that I sent to everybody a couple of days ago consists of a description, perhaps a little overly long, of what each of these groups does, and something that is described as a target activity, which is an action or a policy or a program that the group thinks is a priority for their particular work on conservation in Milton. And most of these target activities were in fact identified at that first meeting a year and a half ago. And I've asked people to update them. Most of the folks have done that, still waiting on 1 or 2. So this document that I send around is a background document for this meeting, where we're gonna ask each of the for organizations to send a representative, talk about their work, talk about their target activity, and explore ways in which they can support one another and perhaps support a coordinated conservation activity. There's also in this document an agenda for the planning meeting that this group will have in May and a draft invitation to the meeting. Now, I'm not sure that the other three working groups would go about doing what I did in this way, because in doing this, it occurred to me that conservation, at least, is the purview of these 3 or 4 groups. In other areas like transportation or buildings or waste, you might not have, it might be more a question of pulling together specific stakeholder individuals. But that's perhaps an item for discussion. There's one more point that surfaced for me in doing this, which is when we put forward our recommendations, which hopefully each of the 4 groups are going to do for targeted actions that the Climate Action Planning Committee can support. Should those targeted actions be focused on a policy issue, such as, I don't know, redoing the waste management system, or looking at trying to identify the hazardous zones in the Neponset River Valley that affect homeowners. So should our targets be at that level, or, as I think Maggie suggested, should they be at the individual level, meaning get yourself a heat pump, put a sticker on your waste management thing, waste management recycling bins. Should we focus on either or both of that level of activity?
In the climate, we have a draft climate action plan that sets out goals and strategies. It's a mix of
Yeah,
both.
yeah.
I guess my question or comment, I just want to make sure I remember correctly. I think the project descriptions you've got in here, these are taken from the climate action plan.
That's
We've seen, these aren't new, right? Nor should they be, yeah, okay. And in the draft invitation, you have April 30th, but that's a moving target.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be sometime in May, ideally, maybe before the May meeting of this group. I wanted to get people's reaction to this document first.
Is this May meeting gonna be a public meeting? Or just a meeting of the 4 conservation groups?
Well, that's another good question. At the last meeting, I think we agreed that there would be some expert kind of consultants at the meeting who are expert in these conservation areas. Some of them actually could come from these 4 groups. And I think there's value in also inviting citizens who are interested in these issues in the meeting.
And would these be hosted in the library or would?
Yeah, I don't know, we don't have a venue yet, but probably in the library or here sometimes, yeah.
Okay, so Annex A is the agenda.
Yeah,
Do you want us to talk over that briefly?
sure. So the agenda for the conservation meeting would focus on each of the four groups saying a little bit about their work. And then a presentation of the target projects. And then a discussion about are there areas of overlap and would the four groups like to commit to working together periodically, meaning maybe one group, one meeting a year to support one another, look for common funding, and keep exchanging information. Did Arthur join? No.
No, he hasn't joined.
Okay, so we did the one kind of new thing is we did, at Arthur's suggestion, add the Conservation Commission, because he thought that their work overlapped and could be supported by what these other groups are doing.
And on page 11, you have a targeted project that's actually funded already. The Lower
The
Neponset River
conservation,
Estuary Project,
which one?
the Lower Neponset River Estuary Project.
No, if that's their mistake, it's different from the project that Arthur's group is working on. So that might be my mistake if it's in there. The one that we've been talking about, the Watershed Association doing with us is one that looks at the impact of the watershed on private property that abuts it and develops some guidance and principles for developing or maintaining property along the watershed.
So that would be a project that would be led by the Neponset River Watershed Association.
Yeah.
And is that something they have on their
Yeah.
roadmap for the next couple
Well,
of years?
yeah, and that was also part of the 2025. It's already, I think, up on the website. Sean Canty, who's the watershed person who I've been working with, has been ill, but he is in the process of updating that targeted project description.
Okay, but still seeking funding for it.
Yeah.
So is there any specific questions or that you have for the committee or guidance that you're looking for?
Just if people feel that this is a document, a good background document, that we can go ahead and have the working group meeting in May, and whether it is something that the other groups could use to develop a similar document in preparation for their hope to be own network and education meeting.
This sort of feels like, I'm not sure I would follow this model because it feels like I could take the building chapter out and say, okay, here's a summary document.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
The challenge is how do you get people to read it? right? So, and then my question for you would be, if you want the public to come to this, how are you going to make them aware that it's happening? How are you going to encourage people to come? And it's a hard challenge. I mean, we've done a number of public meetings associated with activities in our plan. You advertise it on Facebook, you advertise it through the town, 4 people will show up, and that's just kind of the nature of it.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think I'd be happy if 4 people showed up. The main goal of the meeting is to get these 4 groups together.
yeah,
And so getting people who are interested in it would be great, and we, with your, okay, we would advertise it or put a notice about it in the Milton Times, but we're not looking to get hundreds of,
yeah, no, I mean, I think if that's what you want to achieve,
yeah,
and you just sort of structure the discussion with the 4 groups in a way that like an outsider could come and be like, oh, that was interesting.
yeah,
And you have it in a public place, I think that's
yeah,
progress.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And I think in my experience, the sort of the kind of nitty gritty work of researching funding opportunities or producing cost estimates for projects is not something that's easy to do in a working group session.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't expect that to happen on the agenda.
Did I say that? Yeah.
I wasn't clear whether you were saying that or not,
Yeah, no, I agree with,
but yeah, I mean,
It may also be just a quick thought here. It may also be in the output in the debrief. So, Friends of the Blue Hills shows up, they bring 2 people. It's a good working session. This tree stock analysis, which by the way, they've already got a grant for, becomes a priority. And some of the communication ultimately, I think, could be driven by these work groups. Friends of the Blue Hills has got 13,000 people in an email list, communicating to them regularly. And so it may be that this is the start of a communication plan that could ultimately be coordinated not only through us and the town, but also as these initiatives are adopted and prioritized through the different working groups. May ultimately be where the power of the communication comes from. Right. Again, not taking any decisions on behalf of the town, but just in terms of, um, their capabilities and their communities that they've already built. Again, these initiatives need to be adopted. They need to be prioritized. They need to be, worth it to these groups. But I wouldn't see a reason why the Friends of the Blue Hills wouldn't want to be communicating about working with the town of Milton as a potential way to be working with other towns around the park as well.
what is the sort of substance of the collaboration there? That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around.
what is the what?
What's the substance of the collaboration between
Uh,
NWRA or Friends of the Blue Hills on these particular projects with the town? What's our role in?
our role is
Moving
to
them forward.
facilitate collaboration and funding
But what collaboration?
for what collaboration?
What does the partnership consist of?
The partnership consists of a collaboration among these 4 groups, all of whom are working for the goal of conserving, preserving, sustaining land related to climate in Milton, and to have them, to provide a forum for them to exchange what they're working on and to find things that might help if, instead of doing it by themselves, they did it together.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if people want to have the meeting, you should absolutely have the meeting. think it's a little abstract to me, but yeah, there's no reason not to do it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think other sectors that we're working on don't have this kind of infrastructure in terms of groups that are already working on part of what they're
Yeah,
focused on. So for waste management, you probably wouldn't need something like this. You probably would just identify who the key stakeholder individuals are. You know, describe a series of policies or programs that you think need to be addressed and convene a meeting, and it would be simpler.
yeah. And that is, that is a process that the EEA planning grant consultants, should we receive that funding, that's part of the scope of what they would do with us. Stakeholder mapping and whatnot. Any other questions, comments? Okay. So the next item on the agenda is our new and noteworthy app domain updates. Kim, Arthur had sent me an update on the waste working group in the last day or so, that I haven't added to the agenda, but do you feel able to speak to that
Sure.
last?
Yeah, actually, I was wondering if I should have. Yeah. So Cassandra, who's the environmental coordinator for the town, canceled our meeting that was supposed to happen last week. But so Arthur and I got on the phone, and we just were talking about and it's sort of what Ron was just saying. It's a lot more straightforward, a lot less abstract than the conservation group. Just what we would do for a meeting, which Arthur had sent you, Alex, like kind of a layout, which we expected it would be about like maybe a 90-minute meeting with where we just sort of lay out what the current waste landscape is like, talk about recycling and solid waste and composting and some new programs, different options for recycling batteries and different things. So sort of lay out what the current situation is, have a slideshow for that, have Cassandra there, talk about supplemental recycling offerings, and answer questions from like anyone who shows up, see what people's feedback is. So sort of straightforward, and might be a good way to like see, we're always talking about like, how do we get our message across to the town? So, we're hopeful that maybe some people would come out of the woodwork, even people who didn't like the current situation, and just hear what they had to say, kind of learn from people. And also try to educate people about recycling, which is, we're always trying to think of ways to educate people to reduce the amount of contamination in recycling.
Here I'm trying to get the outline on the screen here.
Kim or Alex, while you're doing that, last time we talked, I understood that, soon the town, there was going to be another assessment of the contamination in the recycling stream. Do you know if that has occurred yet or not?
I don't know, since Casey canceled that meeting, but yeah, we'll find out next month. Sorry about that.
All right, I would have to quit Zoom to share anything, so I'm not going to put that up on the screen. I thought I remembered seeing in this, oh, there it is. Recommended waste management goals. So part of the program would be presenting the sort of priority goals
Mhm.
of the climate action plan in the waste arena. Um, meeting the Commonwealth's waste reduction goal by 2030, which he hasn't listed out in this email, but I think it's in the climate action plan. Is that
Right. I think it's pretty ambitious, but yeah, we could at least.
and then in a more Milton specific context, reducing the contamination rate to 10% in 2026. So that would really be the focus of this year. And third, increase composting participation from 300 to 600 households in 2026. So I'll just share that Sustainable Milton had a board strategic goal setting meeting last month, and we walked out of that with sort of 5 priority focus areas for the next 18 months, and probably another 5 very tangible goals that are sort of hovering right below those. 2 of those 5 are these two that are in your
Not
plan.
too surprising considering Lauren is in this group that,
Yeah, no, so we're collaborating, right?
yeah, it's great.
So I
Oh,
think
she's amazing.
to the extent that the Climate Action Planning Committee sort of focuses on the residential side of climate actions, I think Sustainable Milton will usually want to be a partner in driving those forward. And so everybody's busy and things are moving forward very slowly, but I think the next step is to do a deeper dive on what actions, what resources and activities we need to move those along. I think is 10% the number though, that when we were having that meeting, we didn't have the target contamination rate in front of us. So 10%, okay.
I think so, but we had gotten up, it's actually up at like 16 or 17. So I think there was, it's going to be challenging to get it under 10%, but a lot of it is just education of letting people know. Like Cassandra had done an audit and she found just like a lot of people had their recycling in plastic bags. And that seemed like, a pretty easy point to get across to people. Like, don't put
Yes,
plastic
I
bags.
actually, and like when we were discussing it, somebody said something which made me realize that I also had a problem, because they said there are lots of like house cleaners that come to people's homes, and they don't, rules differ across town, so they may not know that in Milton you're not supposed to take the recycling out in a bag. I was like, huh. So
Yeah.
the first time I went and checked after my cleaners left the house, and lo and behold, they put the recycling in the bin in a bag.
I do have recycling bags.
But you're not supposed to use those in Milton.
No,
No.
really?
Yes, see, so
There we go.
we all have something to learn.
We all have, yeah,
And so, after that, I reached out to the coordinator and said, hey, just ask them not to use a bag. Simple thing. I just had to ask. They didn't know.
Sure.
So,
no, I think a lot of people don't know. They put their recycling in a bin and it has a bag, and they put the bag in the recycling bin outdoors.
I lived in, you had to put it in a clear blue bag, right? So I don't know why it's different here, but it is.
Right.
So I think that, there's a lot of education we can do with a positive tone and just sort of assuming positive intent and see how far that gets us.
Yeah, Casey's been posting a lot on, the DPW site, and it keeps getting shared across Facebook. The different other sites share it. And we keep talking about making flyers, putting things in like the Connect Milton, the like sort of newcomers to Milton, getting a flyer in there. packages.
Would you like
So
to do some sort of lighthearted, goofy video about it? Because people don't really like to think about their trash.
yeah, sure.
Um,
That's a good idea.
but you could probably do, to reduce some of the shame from it, like a funny video where
Yeah,
one of
that's a good idea. Like,
somebody discovers that they're doing it wrong and it's funny, not shameful. Um, I don't know. Kyle, are you involved with Connect Milton?
Um, if being involved is being on the email list.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
me
I'm
too.
involved too.
Yeah. I have been in the past, but not recently.
I have a question. Who would you invite to this meeting, the waste management meeting?
You mean for the audience or to be a presenter?
Well, for the people who would be affected or in policies and the issues that you're putting forward.
Well, I mean, we didn't really, we kind of thought it would just be like us who are on the waste working group. But we don't have a lot of other, but we haven't gotten a chance to talk to this as a group. Are you suggesting that we need more people as a?
Well, I'm just suggesting that the idea behind the networking meetings are to kind of expand and bring into the conversation people that are affected by the policies that you've been talking about or thinking might be worthwhile doing.
Well, I think we imagine that it would be like a public meeting and that we would advertise and have like members of the community join and who would be like interesting to get their take on things. But I'm not sure who else like that we would collaborate with could go. But the next time we have a waste meeting, we can definitely discuss that.
Yeah, I mean, for example, would it be worthwhile inviting a representative from one of the companies that does waste management or one of the companies that does the soil, whatever it is.
Oh, Black Earth
Yeah,
or like compost or
yeah.
that's a good idea.
Black Earth does a lot of outreach and networking. I bet that they would send somebody.
Yeah,
And they're always ready to do a little presentation, it seems
Oh.
like.
really, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be good. That's a great idea.
And did you guys have a time frame in mind?
Arthur had suggested, avoiding the summer. So I'm not sure if we'd be quite ready. If conservation is doing May, I would think maybe like September.
And you guys heard that Marina Fernandez is leaving DPW?
Oh, I did not hear that.
It was in the Milton Times last week, I think.
Oh, huh. I usually read that thing cover to cover.
So that may be why Cassie canceled the meeting.
Ah,
So Tom McCarthy will be the DPW director. He's currently the Consolidated Facilities Director. I don't know if he's gonna be in both roles for a while, or if they found somebody to take over Consolidated Facilities yet.
okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
It's an important piece of information.
Yeah, it's a shame.
That's too bad.
Because yes, Marina was really firing on all cylinders. So should be missed.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think Tom McCarthy also has a long experience in DPW as well. I don't remember what role he held before, but he's familiar with it, that's for sure.
That's good. I hope Cassie doesn't leave.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Okay, so unfortunately, I don't have much to report on the buildings front other than what was already mentioned in the energy manager update. Um, and from discussions before the meeting, I don't think there is a lot to report on the transportation side, but if anybody wants to.
I guess I'll just start by saying that yeah, Alex and I spoke a bit. I personally had some distractions over the past month, but um, since Kai is working on sort of the zero emission vehicle uh, first policy, I'll be reaching out to him and Alex. He said Nick Milano is also is very interested in this topic, so sort of establishing a rapport with them. I think to what Ron had in his plan there, identifying sort of a stakeholder or affinity group of people who are interested in this topic, and then holding a meeting is sort of where I'm aiming at. And fortuitously, at least at the state level, we're having some Mass DOT and MBTA folks here in the building tomorrow, and for other purposes, talking about the Cape Cod bridges in Alston. But can I can pull them aside and sort of talk to them about what we're trying to do as well. So that's sort of where I'm leaning right now with the transportation. Happy to have other people join in.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I'll mention one other thing. I remember that this was a while ago now, when Nick Connors was still here as assistant town administrator. But one action they had taken on the zero emission vehicle first policy was, I think there are mechanics on staff in DPW. And so one step they had taken was to go sit down with them and ask them, like, if we were to shift our municipal fleet away from fossil fuel vehicles towards EVs, what trainings and resources would you need? So that's just one item of context, and a realization that those members of the DPW staff would certainly be highly affected by this decision, and so it would be good to. I mean, it sounds like the town's already thinking about it, which is great, and that's definitely the job of the town administrator to think of such things. But to the extent that we can be up to date on how that's going and what the who's enthusiastic, who has reservations, what are they? The better. It sort of felt like it was on track last time I talked to them about it, and the deadline to apply for. I wish my memory was better. Kai mentioned the deadline to apply for climate leader communities designation this year is in June, I think. So I think they're working towards having that policy in place for a June application. But I always I always get anxious if I haven't heard anything at all. So
Well,
that's
I'll follow up with them. Alex, has the town had the hydrogen conversation? My understanding, at least in other forms of transportation, is sort of heavy vehicles, it like trains or ferries. Hydrogen seems to be a more there seems to be more interest around looking at that as a fuel rather than batteries right now. I don't know if the town if thinking of its heavy trucks, if they've thought about that and said, no, we're either going to be gas or we'll go electric when it's time.
I haven't heard anything like that. The conversation that we had last year was we'll focus on the low hanging fruit first, which is the administrative vehicles. So they have two Leafs and one Charger behind Town Hall here. They're looking to get a second Charger behind Town Hall, and there are more administrative vehicles that'll need to be replaced next. Those would probably be the first to transition over. All I've heard for heavier duty vehicles is that's more difficult. So,
Right.
I had not heard that hydrogen was the leading contender, although I've seen a big hydrogen tank over in Braintree, so I know they exist. I've also heard of the Hindenburg.
Yeah.
So I imagine
It's
that'll be most people's first thought when you start talking about hydrogen.
Yeah, it is safer now, but and you can generate it yourself through plug-in generators. But okay,
Mhm.
thanks.
Hi, Arthur.
Sorry to be late, everybody. Had a conflicting engagement that ran a little over, but I'm here.
Kim gave us an update on the waste working groups.
I knew I could rely on her.
Plans. So yeah, so we're actually, I've lost my agenda here.
Alex,
Yeah.
on the building side, I've got a kind of a commitment from Greener U
Oh, yes.
to do a presentation on geothermal. And I was hoping to get this committee and Sustainable Milton to sponsor it, co-sponsor it, along with Greener U. They would be given the presentation. It would be open to the public, but I'd very much like to try to get town officials to attend, because I think it's technology that's very applicable to municipal buildings. So I'm sort of targeting trying to get something going in June.
Mhm.
But I'd be very open to people's suggestions and ideas and how to run the appeal. I've drafted a brief announcement that could go into the Milton Times. But I'm not an expert on social media and things like that.
Neither am I.
I don't know if this committee, how this committee feels about sponsoring that kind of event.
I see no reason not to co-sponsor it personally. Any thoughts on that? I think anything that gets anybody in town thinking about it and, attracts people who are interested is a good thing.
Mhm.
Especially if Greener U wants to do it. They're not asking for a huge speaking fee. I don't imagine.
I don't think so.
Um,
Along the same lines, I actually just attended a seminar at Wellesley Village Congregational Church that was on Wednesday morning from 8:30 to noon. It was an excellent seminar. They had a whole bunch of different speakers. Very much focused on geothermal, and how to accelerate conversion to electrification.
so they weren't just talking about their own geothermal project.
No, it was much.
Was it more of an information session
It's
for,
much broader than that.
was it aimed at residents or?
They started with large institutions, and then went to commercial, and then went to. Now they first started with policy issues, and then went to uh, commercial, institutional, and finally, village church's own conversion to geothermal.
In terms of town officials, I think that the people who are sort of most directly making the kinds of decisions that you're interested in are the consolidated facilities director and the sort of finance people in the school superintendent's office. You get the superintendent of schools, I don't know, maybe he's less busy in June, or maybe I'm just being naive.
Yeah,
No, June is still school, isn't it? Most of June is, I think school goes all the way to the 24th or something this year.
any sense as to, if I was trying to get space for the library, would a 6 o'clock meeting be best for getting town officials as well as, would that work for the public or not?
I mean, I think what works for the public is town officials like to meet during working hours and the public doesn't.
Yeah.
So I think you work with the individual staff members that you're most interested in to see what works for them.
Okay.
And so we have to figure out who is the facilities director now. Is it still Tom McCarthy or? But as you heard in Kai's update, they are currently taking a close look at the high school. And I know they're familiar with these technologies, but they may not, like you pointed out, be familiar with the incentives that are available, because that gets really complicated really fast, and it's easy to come to the wrong conclusion and sort of think, oh, well, there's no money available for that. Actually, there is, right? And there's a lot of other grant programs. They're probably not familiar with all of those, but to the extent that you can get them to come and sort of make them aware of opportunities they weren't aware of, that sounds like a good thing.
Do you know why the Council on Aging was selected as the first building to electrify in the town?
No. I don't. But I think I picked up that they're adding cooling, and so that's often one of the big inducements to move to heat pumps.
Because they don't.
Because you don't, yeah. If you're getting air conditioning out of it, then people are willing to pay a little bit for that to happen. Anybody else have updates they'd like to share? Okay. Well, in that case, the last item on our agenda is just to discuss our next meeting date. The normal cadence, we'd meet on Thursday, May 21st. Is that a problem for anyone?
I may be traveling. Let me double check.
I won't be here that day, but
Okay, so no. Well, are you traveling for the summer or no? You just said you're making plans for the summer.
that's just bad.
Yeah, I'll be out of town.
Okay, no, here on the file. Okay,
So I might be able to, attend over Zoom, so.
right. So I'll tentatively stick with that date and I will, I'll send out another request for confirmation email a little closer and we'll take it from there. So Thursday, May 21st at 6 p.m. tentatively for the next meeting. And with that, I will entertain motions to adjourn this evening.
I motion we adjourn.
Oh, we're on back to the motion this time. Any seconds? Oh, I saw Steve raise his hand. So Steve seconds the motion. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Let the record show that no one was opposed. And you're free to go, folks. Thank you for making time this evening. It's good to see you all.
Thanks,
Good night.
Alex.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Those of you who have
Feel
a spring
better.
break, thank you. Yeah, hope those of you with a spring break enjoy it. I'm gonna try.
Thank you.
Good night.